session. Parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury and alternates are present. And Mr. McGee, you may cross the table.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Sergeant Steve.
Good morning, sir.
So when you went to the address on August 5th of 2014, you wrote a search warrant, correct?
Correct.
You just couldn't enter in. You went there with legal authorization to make sure you got in.
Correct.
Did you bring a copy of that search warrant with you
Today?
today?
No.
Okay. It wasn't necessary. I have a copy for you to review. So one of the things you put, well, there's an affidavit to a search warrant, correct?
Correct.
And in that affidavit, you put in your thoughts and your experience to explain to a judge why you need to go to the house.
Correct.
And there was a few things in there that you said were troublesome, and that's why you needed to go back to the house. You suspected that was where the scene of the crime or the murder was, correct?
I don't know if I used those exact words, but a summary of them, yes.
And one of the things you mentioned was the dried paint trays that didn't have foil in them, contrary to how MacGyver taught Summer how to do it.
Correct.
And that was one of the facts you put in as the basis, correct?
If I review the search warrant to determine, but it sounds familiar.
When reviewing the San Diego investigation of the photograph, did you not see the foil inside the pan that was found when they searched it?
I don't recall.
Show you Exhibit 725, which is a photograph they put on placard 8 with the paint can behind it with tin foil.
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
That is in evidence, Your Honor. Mr. MacGyver said that the tin foil was found in there.
The objection sustained on relevance grounds.
Your Honor, it goes to his credibility as a witness as his representation as to what the facts of the case were for a search warrant, impeachment.
Objection argumentative. Move to strike counsel's comment.
The objection still sustained on relevance grounds in evidence code 352.
Now, you also said that you interviewed Susan Blake, correct?
Yes.
And Susan Blake told you herself that the paint can was found, or paint pan was found with tin foil in it. Isn't that right?
I don't remember.
Was seeing your interview with Miss Blake help refresh your memory?
Yes.
I'm going to show you 7144. Third paragraph, second to last sentence is highlighted for you.
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, it does.
Is it true Susan Blake told you that when the paint pan was found, it had foil in it?
Objection assumes, well, it's not relevant.
Sustained on relevance grounds in evidence code 352.
And you said also that the futon cover was missing, correct?
Yes.
And you said you looked at one picture from Christmas time of the boy sitting on the futon. From Christmas 2009, you compared it to a picture for the blankets that were found in the gravesite, correct?
I recall the photograph, correct?
Go to that, that's Exhibit 5. Is this the photograph you're referring to?
Yes.
If you zoom in on 5, you can see the type of fabric it is, correct? It has like a hex pattern to it. Tight woven thread. So if we go to Exhibit 261, which counsel didn't show you, but is a picture of the towel at the gravesite, that's a chevron pattern, is it not? Point, point, point.
Yes, that photograph is a chevron pattern.
And that is the blanket that was found in the grave wrapped around Joseph McStay. Would you agree now that the blanket found wrapped around Joseph McStay does not match the futon cover?
I don't know about this close-up photograph. If you show me a wider photograph, I can tell if it's the same one.
Well, there's testimony identified that is the blanket, a picture of it by Heather Lee Radlett, that's the blanket that was wrapped around. So, is that exhibit, which I will show on one side, is that the same fabric?
I can't tell.
You testified on direct it was. Now you're saying you're not sure?
Objection misstates his testimony.
Sustained. His testimony on direct was, it looked similar and was consistent with.
Does this look similar and consistent?
I can't tell based off of the photograph on the left being so pixelated compared to the close-up of the one on the right, any more than what I previously testified on to.
Now, in your affidavit, you said you need to go back into the house to see if we can establish this as a crime scene. And, quote, based on my training experience, inflicting injury through blunt force trauma typically creates a large amount of blood stains and blood stain patterns within the crime scene.
Objection relevance.
Well, sustained as phrase, if you want to go into his experience in that regard, you can do that. But the statements in the affidavit itself are not relevant.
Isn't it true, in your experience, that when there's excessive blunt force trauma, as the kinds that happen to the McStay family, would create blood-stained patterns and a large amount of blood at the scene of the crime?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overall, we can answer based on his training and experience.
It's possible. Every situation is different.
When we put it in the affidavit, you didn't use the word possible, correct? You
Objection
said it will happen.
and argumentative.
Overall,
I don't recall the exact words I put in the search warrant.
Reviewing that search warrant, help refresh your memory on that.
Yes.
6395, third paragraph. The highlighted areas in the third paragraph, you can read any part you want and let me know when you're done.
I'm done thinking, sure.
Does reading that part of your affidavit refresh your memory?
Yes.
It's true you didn't quantify it with possibly in your affidavit. You were certain it would be there.
Objection argumentative. Relevance.
sustained as phrase.
You were concerned that San Diego, when they were in the house, did not find any scene of a crime, so you thought it was important to go back into the house and look for evidence, correct?
Correct.
And so when you went there, you also informed, or you also wrote that, strike that. Isn't it true, it's your experience that if there are blood stains on a wall, even if they're painted over, it can still be detected.
It's possible, yes.
If the correct forensic process is done, you can find it, correct?
Yes.
And you went there with that intent.
Yes.
And you brought a crime scene tech with you, correct?
3 of them.
And you did search the house,
Yes, sir.
and you did find points of interest in your investigation.
Yes.
And you came in contact with the homeowner, Sandra Callahan,
Yes.
and she went through with you what changes they had made that you testified to, correct?
Her and Sean, yes.
So she said, you know, we changed the floor on the first floor in the family room and kitchen, pulled up the linoleum and carpet, correct?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
Did they mention finding any blood stains in the carpet or in the padding?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overruled, answer yes or no.
She mentioned one stain that troubled her, but she didn't know if it was blood.
Is that the one on the stairs?
No.
She said the carpet on the stairs was the same though, correct?
Yes.
And then she pointed to different stains on the walls on the second floor.
Correct.
Not in the carpet, but on the wall.
Correct.
And you went and did testing on those, correct? With your field tech?
Yes, and I apologize. You said not on the carpet on the second floor. There was one stain on the second floor, which she pointed out to me that we tested.
Right. You went through and you marked them with different placards to identify the different things you wanted to sample. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Placard 1 was what appeared to be to you a blood stain on the exterior of a master bedroom, or excuse me, bathroom door.
I don't know the placard number, but there was a stain there that we checked.
And you took a sample of that, correct?
Correct.
And you took that back to get tested later.
Correct.
And then at placard 2, there was a stain on the carpet on the stairs that tested positive for a hemostake.
Correct.
And could you explain to the jury what a positive on a hemostake meant to you as the investigator?
A hemostake is essentially testing for any blood present at the time. So typically what we'll do is if we want to determine if it's a stain, if it appears to be blood and not hidden, we will take distilled water and put it on the hemostake or on the actual stain and put it on the hemostake and it will react whether or not it's blood or not. And will let us know.
And so that's kind of like a presumptive test.
Correct.
And then you have to confirm that that's actually an accurate test back to the lab.
Correct.
So is it true you cut out that square or that carpet and said, we need to get the test to see what this is?
Correct.
And that was at placard 2.
I don't recall the actual placard numbers, but I do remember the site.
Does seeing your report help refresh your memory about the different aspects of what you were finding?
It would refresh my memory reference to the actual placard numbers, yes, sir.
I'll show you 7328. If it's okay, I'll leave this up here with you just so in the event you need to refresh your memory of those reports again.
Thanks.
Now, reviewing your report, placard 1 was what you thought was a blood stain on the exterior of the master bathroom door, correct?
Correct.
Placard 2 was on the carpet.
On the stairwell, yes, sir.
Okay, placard 3 was one where you found a positive blue star on the door frame to the southwest bathroom door.
Yes, sir, an area of fluorescence.
And can you explain to the jury what that positive blue star test meant to you as an investigator?
So, blue star is a chemical that we spray in low light or no light in areas of mist in a spray bottle. And if there's a possible presence of blood, it will light up or start to glow. And so in this particular area, we sprayed it and we had a glow on the area in placard number 3, which was on the west side of the door frame.
So that's a presumptive. You say, I need to analyze this and see if this is actually blood.
Yeah, it's an indicator for us to analyze and see if it's...
And it looked like blood to you, right?
In placard number 3,
Yes.
I believe it was just an area of fluorescence. I don't believe you could see with the naked eye if there was a stain of blood.
Fair enough. And you took a sample of placard 3 for further analysis.
Yes, we did.
And that placard 4, down in the kitchen on the wall near the office, there was another positive hemastick detection, correct?
In placard 4?
Yes.
Yes.
And you took a sample of that as well for further testing.
Correct.
And that appeared to be on the scene. It gave the impression that it could be blood.
Correct.
And then also you took an item I-10. You took a swab of the wall near the stairs, correct?
Item I-10.
I-10.
I don't have that in my report, but I can recall that we did take a swab on the wall next to where the stain was on my placard.
Okay. Get that. We're done with that part of it. Now, you testified that one of the things of interest to you was the fact there was no towels in the upstairs bathroom. Remember that part of your testimony?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you Exhibit 734, which is a picture of that bathroom further back, correct?
Correct.
On the right side of the picture, there seems to be blue tape placed down on the top edge of the backsplash, correct?
Correct.
And there's no mirror on that wall.
Correct.
And then there's appears to be paper down on the counter.
Some newspapers, yes, sir.
Appears to be a towel rack that's in its packaging still.
Correct, sir.
And then some smaller toilet paper holder next to it.
Yes, sir.
And then I will show you 735, which is a different angle of those same sink, correct?
It appears so, sir.
And then 682 has also been identified as a photograph of the outer edge of that sink with the blue tape. Does that seem accurate?
Yes, sir.
I'll show you picture 96, which is the bathroom next door, which has a big mirror laying up against the closet doors. Right?
The bedroom next door, yes, sir.
When you evaluate that there was no towels in that bathroom, did you take into consideration that it appears that bathroom is being painted and everything was removed?
It was something I noticed, yes, sir.
So if somebody's painting a room, would it be odd for you that they took all the towels out of there?
Not for that one bathroom, no, sir.
You were shown picture exhibit 93 about the missing cushion, correct? And it was highlighted to you that beige fabric to the left of the cushion.
Yes, sir.
Did you notice that beige cloth yourself, or were you told that by the DAs that that was found during trial?
No, I noticed that.
Did you notice that it was consistent with the futon?
I believe it was.
And when did you notice that?
I don't know the date. At some point during our investigation.
So not sometime during the investigation.
Correct.
Did you write a report saying it appears that one of the futon covers is actually in the laundry room?
I don't remember writing that, no.
And that would be something important, wouldn't it? Since you always wrote in your reports that there was no futon covers in the house.
No. I believe I said the futon cover was missing because I believe that that's only one thing for possibly that pillow or another. There would be more than just that.
And I will show you 723, another picture of the inside of the washing machine. Could that possibly be more of that futon cover in the washing machine?
It appears to me that it's not.
Okay. When you talked to Susan Blake, you asked Susan Blake about the futon cover, correct?
I believe so.
And she said she never looked up in the washer and dryer, but thought the futon cover could probably be there.
I don't recall those exact words. No.
You'll see in your report, help refresh your memory on that part.
Yes, sir.
Last paragraph. Does reading that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Is it true Susan Blake told you, I didn't look upstairs, but the futon cover could probably be up there?
She said it was possible, but she didn't know, and then we'd have to ask the other two people that helped do the cleaning.
And when you talked to Susan Blake, she explained to you the conversation she had with her son, Michael McStay, when he went over the house on the 13th with my client, Mr. Merritt. Remember that part of the conversation?
I do recall her mentioning the conversation.
And she said Michael was on the phone claiming that there was no way to get inside, so he was going to break a window.
Objection beyond the scope, hearsay.
He went into her statement.
Sustained on both grounds.
He brought up her statement, and it's also impeachment for a prior witness who...
The objection sustained.
Isn't it true, as Blake said, Michael told her that he was going to look for an open window and found one?
Objection, hearsay beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Isn't it true he said he's going to climb in and he hung up the phone?
Objection, relevance beyond the scope, hearsay.
Sustained.
And you talked to Susan Blake about what she did and what she saw on February 16th when she went to the house, correct?
The exact date of what you're referring to, I don't know without looking at my report to refresh my memory.
But she did go over there, first time she went over there, you talked to her about that occurrence.
Correct.
And she told you when she entered the house, she smelled rotten food.
Objection, hearsay beyond the scope.
Overruled.
Correct.
She mentioned nothing about smelling fresh paint, correct?
Correct.
Then she saw different items on the counter, fruit, eggs, everything like that.
Yes, she saw different items.
And she said she saw eggs in a carton, both whole and broken.
Objection, hearsay beyond the scope.
Sustained. Cumulative.
No, Your Honor, this is actually impeachment to Mrs. Blake's testimony. She only said she saw them.
Objection, argumentative, move to strike counsel's comments.
All right, I'll allow it as possible impeachment.
You remember the aspect of how she described the eggs were found?
Yes.
And did she not tell you that some were inside the carton and some were broken?
Yes.
And also, Blake recalled seeing a flathead screwdriver and an instrument commonly used to open paint cans in the kitchen.
Objection, relevance.
I apologize, I have to review my report to see exactly what she said as far as that.
Show you 745, first paragraph. This one's highlighted.
Reading that refresh your memory?
Yes.
And what did Ms. Blake tell you about ways to open the paint can she saw in the kitchen?
I would object, it's hearsay, it's not inconsistent.
She didn't recall that statement on a cross when she was on the stand.
She saw a flathead screwdriver and an instrument commonly used to open up paint cans.
Then Ms. Blake also said she went upstairs and noticed the clothes everywhere.
Yes.
And you also noticed that and thought that was important or peculiar.
From photographs I viewed, yes.
And she noted something weird about Summer's wedding dress, did she not?
Yes.
Objection, cumulative, 352, hearsay.
This is not cumulative, Your Honor. This is impeachment of Ms. Blake, and she didn't recall this part of her testimony.
Actually, she testified to it, Your Honor.
The objection sustained is cumulative.
Didn't Ms. Blake say it was weird that the dress was out of the box that she saw Summer load up in San Clemente?
Objection, hearsay, now
Objection
argumentative.
sustained is cumulative.
Your Honor, this testimony or evidence has not come in yet. It can't be cumulative.
Yeah, it is said. The
Because
objection-
she did not
The
remember.
objection sustained, Mr. McGee.
Prior consistent statements or inability to remember.
The objection is sustained.
Ms. Blake described she cleaned up the house,
Objection,
the kitchen,
cumulative, hearsay,
found a
beyond the scope.
Your Honor, I would ask that the prosecution not have an objection to every question doesn't become badgering and actually,
Well, the objection sustained is cumulative. This has all been covered by previous witnesses.
when she went outside and put everything in the trash, did you ask her if she found any cleaning supplies out there?
I believe it did.
Did she indicate she didn't see anything outside that indicated anybody had cleaned up any kind of part of the house?
I don't know if she used those exact words, but I believe she didn't state she saw the cleaning supplies.
But she didn't see any signs of anything cleaning in the trash cans outside.
Correct.
And you also interviewed Michael McStay at some point, correct?
Yes.
And that was after you spoke to Susan.
Correct.
And Michael McStay, he told you that he didn't have access to any of the financial documents for EIP.
Objection, relevance, cumulative.
Sustained.
Didn't he tell you that all financial documents for EIP were accessed through Dan Kavanaugh?
Objection, calls for hearsay, cumulative.
Sustained.
That's impeachment contrary to what Mr. Michael McStay testified. He says he got the information from my client.
All right, I don't know, it's possible impeachment.
Isn't it true that Michael McStay told you that all that information was accessed through Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Now, as you testified on direct, you had other aspects of the investigation you were involved in, correct?
Yes.
One of them was you went down to the San Ysidro parking lot just to kind of get a look of the scene.
Correct.
And while you're there, you notice there's a payphone where someone could use to call for a ride or call for anybody, correct?
Correct.
And you checked those records to see if possibly, if my client went down there, he called anybody from those phones, correct? To get a ride out of there, if he dropped off the Zuzu on gate.
I don't recall if I personally was the one that did that double check or if one of my partners.
You remember reviewing the records, looking for the cell phone and home number of Kathy Jarvis?
I know we did.
And Joseph McStay's cell?
Yes,
McStay residence?
I believe so.
Summer McStay's cell?
Yes,
And Charles Merritt's cell?
I believe so.
And there were no calls found.
Objection calls for hearsay.
Oh,
None that I found out.
And you authored a number of warrants in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of them that you asked for was a GPS ping following of my client's cell phone in 2014.
Objection relevant well beyond the scope.
sustained.
Can I approach and explain the relevance?
It's beyond the scope. If you want to call him as your own witness in your case, you can do so.
For this aspect, we would need to. Now I'm going to show you Exhibit 691 and 279. These are two items that you tested on direct that were consistent, correct?
They appear consistent, yes, sir.
What's consistent about them other than being white towels?
If you look at, I apologize, the photograph on the left,
Yes.
You see how the binding the edge is thicker right here than the actual main area of the towel, consistent with the binding the edge here. And it seems to appear to have the smaller texture to it than like a thick beach towel or a thick towel that would be in a bathroom.
So what you're saying is it's a white towel with a C.
and what the picture, the texture appears to look like in the photograph.
And you also said that the toilet seat cover and the robe have the same texture. Is that what your testimony?
Objection mistakes his testimony.
Overrule again, answer if that's
I'm saying that the robe and the toilet seat cover have a thicker consistency than the normal towel.
I'll go to Exhibit 53. Exhibit 53 was shown to you, which is a picture of the bathroom. Sorry. Service warming up. This is a picture that you discussed about the seat cover, the toilet seat cover in the downstairs bathroom.
Correct.
And those seat covers, they have that thick cotton kind of strands coming off it, don't they? A little smaller than your pinky, but they're nice, thicker cotton strands. Isn't that what we see in this photograph?
They're thicker than a towel.
They're thicker than the robe, right?
It would depend on the robe.
Well, did you look at the robe to see what type of fabric that had? It had that thick cotton?
From the photograph, I looked at the robe the same as.
can approach the court clerk for 1 second, so I can find
Sure.
that picture.
Sure.
What's the picture? 740. That's showing you exhibit 660. That's of the robe. Appears more have a terry cloth type of look to it.
Yes,
Not that thicker cotton like the toilet seat cover, correct?
correct.
So you wouldn't call those consistent?
Objection misstates his testimony that the two
Overruled.
are consistent.
I'm not saying that the seat cover and the robe are consistent. I'm saying that either one appeared similar to what was found on the grave sites in the photograph that it was compared to.
So if they're not consistent with one another, you're just grabbing white cloth, right, and saying this could be it.
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
What in particular about that robe is consistent with anything in the grave?
The photograph that was shown had a thicker cloth inside and from the grave, and I was pointing out that there appeared to be a missing robe from the house, so the two could be consistent with that thick and thicker cloth.
And do you know if the family normally owned two robes?
No,
So if you only owned one robe, then there's none missing. correct?
Objection lacks for foundation, speculation, argumentative.
Sustained speculation.
Well, I'd move to strike the witness's testimony that that could possibly be a missing robe in both direct and cross.
I'm going to object to counsel.
Overruled. Answers remain.
After reviewing the San Diego's investigation, all their reports and photographs, and you returning to the house and doing your test, is there anything in that house that you have found, you have read, or you have seen that tells you those murders happened in the Fallbrook house?
in totality,
In totality, everything you see.
in totality, I believe it did occur in the house.
That's not my question, sir. I didn't ask what you believe. I said, did you see any evidence that shows you that the crime happened in that house?
No.
But you believe it did,
Yes.
without evidence.
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that if you can't find evidence that makes that murder happen in the house, you can't prove a case against my client?
Objection. That's argumentative, assumes facts, not evidence, and legal conclusions.
Sustained. And then you can save those for your closing argument, Mr. McGee.
So the evidence you know is that Summer was wearing sweatpants and a bra, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
Well, let's strike, I'll reword it. When the clothes that were found associated with Summer McStay were sweatpants, panties, and a bra, correct?
In the grave site, yes, sir.
And then possibly a robe.
Yes, sir.
No shoes.
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Joseph McStay had on shorts. There's part of a green shirt in the grave around his body, and there was socks underneath his body, correct?
I believe that's incorrect.
What part do you think is incorrect?
The shorts.
On his body, he didn't have shorts with the 3 stripes down the side?
I believe those were pants.
So he had what you believe is pants, t-shirt, and socks that were underneath his body, correct?
Yes.
And then, obviously, Joseph Jr., we can't associate any clothing with him due to the limited remains, correct?
Objection. That calls for speculation and assumes facts, not evidence.
Now, Gianni in the grade that Gianni was in B with his mother Summer, there was pants and a diaper found within there in his backpack, correct?
I recall the backpack. I'm not quite sure about that.
No shoes in either grade.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And then you're aware of the coffee being made, the eggs being on the counter, and the fruit being out, and the popcorn being on the futon, correct?
I don't recall the coffee. I do remember the eggs and the fruit.
Do you remember Ms. Blake telling you about the coffee on the counter when you interviewed her?
Objection, that's hearsay beyond the scope and cumulative.
Sustained as cumulative.
If there's egg, coffee, the clothes they're wearing, and you also thought that when Ms. McStay was in any time contacted by somebody involved in this crime, she was likely painting, based on the drips you observed on her bra, correct?
Objection, relevance, compound, speculation.
Call it sustained as qualification.
Doesn't it all make sense to you that this probably happened in the morning?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
You're an experienced homicide detective, correct?
Yes.
And you were bringing your expertise to look at the evidence and see what you can deduce from the physical evidence, correct?
Yes, sir.
And based on that, you had to direct your investigation.
Yes, sir.
Now, were you ever the case agent?
No, sir.
Wasn't sure. You had to evaluate the evidence to see what direction to go, right?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't the evidence of how the house was left point to that this happening in the morning?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
I don't have anything further to mention.
Anything on where you're at?
Yes, please. When you undertook steps to go back to the Fallbrook residence, what was your level of confidence of actually finding any evidence 4 years later?
Objection relevant.
Sustained.
Was your purpose to go there to try to do an investigation,
Yes.
regardless of the outcomes?
Absolutely.
Do you know from your interaction how long the O'Callahans have lived in that house since 2010?
Objection relevant.
Oh, okay.
They told me he purchased the home at the end of 2011, I believe.
So they lived in that house actively for 3 years to your knowledge.
Correct.
In that 3 years, wouldn't that lead you to believe that they would?
I'm going to object already. This sounds leading and argumentative.
The objection sustained is calling for speculation and conclusion.
In that time, would you expect the condition of that house to change given active residents in it for 3 years now?
Objection as to relevance, what is possibly happening.
Sustained as cumulative.
Were you willing to tear apart that house to the baseboards if you had to, given the fact that someone lived in that house?
Yes.
Why didn't you?
Objection relevant.
Oh, okay.
Because outside of the evidence that we documented, we didn't find anything else that indicated that we needed to tear out the baseboards in the flooring.
You indicated that you were informed of a stain that was found that was troubling. Were you directed to that location of where it was?
Yes.
Where was that?
In the master bedroom closet.
You have a personal opinion based on your investigation, correct?
Yes.
Of how things may have transpired, correct?
Yes.
Is that subject to a lot of variables in interpretation?
Yes.
Others could have a different opinion, correct?
Yes.
As part of your job as a detective. It's to theorize, to process through information, right?
Yes.
They always turn out right?
No.
Does everyone always agree with you?
No.
Have you ever personally investigated a no-body homicide?
Objection to relevance, this is not a no-body homicide.
The objection to stand on relevance, now to evidence code 352.
Have you ever investigated a case in which you were hampered by the lack of physical evidence?
Yes.
Did that prevent you from investigating?
No.
Did it prevent you from seeking prosecution?
Objection is to that relevance.
Sustained.
And nothing further.
Anything else?
May I approach? How would we do it on the sidebar instead?
Sure, what's reported.
I don't know if we need to report it quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything further?
There you go.
Any objections to Sergeant Steers being excused at this point, subject to recall, please?
We have a subject to recall.
No, fine.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Steers, for your attendance. You are still subject to recall. I assume they know where to find you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do we have our next witness here?
Your Honor,
I want to go ahead and start with that before you. Sure, okay.
people would call Diana Wright.
Do you solemnly state that I'm told in this matter the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Let's see.
Can you state your full name, spell it for the record?
Diana Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Miss, can you your first name, please?
Diana, D-I-A-N-A.
Good morning, Ms. Wright. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a forensic examiner in the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia.
And can you describe for us what exactly you do?
I'm a member of the chemistry unit, and my area of expertise is paints and tapes and other polymeric or plastic materials.
Can you describe for us your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the College of St. Elizabeth in Morristown, New Jersey, and a PhD in chemistry from the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland.
Now, you indicated that you have a specialty, and can you tell us a little bit about what you do in terms of your examination and your specialty?
Within the FBI laboratory, each of the units is divided up into areas of specialty. And so within my unit, chemistry, we have chemistry backgrounds. We all have education in chemistry. But then we specialize once we are in the laboratory itself. And for me, that specialization is specifically with regard to plastic materials or coatings, such as paints. So what I mean by that is, if a request comes into the laboratory, and say, for example, someone's been hit by a car, and they want to determine what that car might be, and there's clothing from the victim, the clothing would be looked at for paint, or materials that might be paint. And so it would be my job to look at that clothing, to see if I can find anything that looks like paint, based on my training and expertise. And if I find paint, then determine what type of vehicle that might be. That's my area of what I worked in. In order to do that, I had to be qualified in this area, which meant that I had to take a series of practical tests, written exams, oral exams, work with people who are already trained in this area, take training from other people who work in this area of forensics outside of the FBI lab, talk to instrument manufacturers who make the equipment that we use, attend special seminars, etc., in order to be qualified to do this work. Then yearly, I need to take a proficiency test in this area to maintain my qualification within the FBI lab.
How long did it take you to accomplish all of that training that you just described to us?
Because I already had degrees in chemistry and I was already an examiner in another area in lab. It took me 1 full year of training to be qualified in my specialty. And then, as I said, I take exams every year to maintain that qualification. In addition to that, I'm board certified by the American Board of Criminalistics in the area of paint and polymers, which means every year I need to prove that I have successfully completed a proficiency test. And every 5 years, I need to prove that I'm keeping up with the discipline in terms of attending scientific meetings, reading journal articles in this area, publishing in this area, doing research in this area, etc.
So that would be a sort of a continuing education component to that?
Yes, that I maintain as a part of my board certification.
Do you do any teaching or instructing within your particular profession?
I have. That's more of an as-needed basis. So, for example, if somebody calls the laboratory and asks us to provide that sort of training, then my superiors will decide on an as-needed basis if we can perform that, and I have done that in the past.
And do you belong to any professional affiliations with respect to your work?
I do. I belong to the American Academy of Forensic Sciences as a fellow, and I'm also a member of the Native Western Association of Forensic Scientists because they have a strong background in paints and polymers. I'm also a member of ASTM on their committee E30, which is criminalistics, which contains the area that I work in. And I'm also a member of the American Society of Trace Evidence Examiners, which is more specific to trace evidence such as hairs and fibers and paint, those types of things.
Have you authored any articles with respect to your specialty?
I have. I've authored several articles with respect to different types of paint analysis.
Have you received any recognition for your work?
Sorry, what?
Any recognition or awards for your work?
In 2017, I received an award from that organization I mentioned.
I'm sorry, say again.
In 2017, I received an award from one of the organizations I mentioned, the American Society of Trace Evidence Examiners. I received their Edmund Locard, LOCARD, Award for Excellence in Trace Evidence.
And in September of 2014, were you asked to analyze some paint samples from a particular case?
Several cases, but also this case.
Sorry. Yeah. In particular to this case, can you tell us how you actually, it was communicated to you that some samples needed to be analyzed?
So this request came into the FBI laboratory through one of our field offices. It came in through our San Diego field office by way of Los Angeles. So we received a communication from the field office saying we needed several types of exams to be done, one of which was paint analysis. And I was assigned to work on that aspect of the case.
Were you provided with some paint samples in this particular case?
Yes, it was.
And can you describe how you received those samples?
All the samples came into the laboratory for our evidence control unit, and they then forwarded the samples to me in the sealed condition once they determined which ones needed to come to chemistry for paint analysis. So I received those from them.
And can you tell us about, you actually did a couple different analyses, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what you received for your first analysis?
In the first analysis, I received what was labeled as possible paint or transfer on a garment of clothing. Also, I received an item with possible paint on a sledgehammer. And then I received 2 samples which were submitted as known paint samples from a residence, one from a living room wall and one from a kitchen entryway wall.
So can you describe for us what exactly you do when you make a comparison of paint samples?
So the comparison is not the first step. The first step is actually to figure out what did I receive. For example, something may look like paint but may not actually be paint, and therefore there would be no comparison that could be made. So the first thing I need to do is look at the item that I received. So for example, the paint from the wall. I looked at that under a microscope and determined what color was the paint. Was it a single layer of paint or several layers? Because as we know, when we paint a wall, usually we prime it first and then there's a layer on top and then we don't like the color and we change it, etc. So I want to see how many colors of paint are actually there, what they look like, how thick are they, and do they all look like like they're supposed to. In other words, this paint from a wall, do they all look like paint that would be on a wall, as opposed to some other type of paint that may have been used at some time?
So did you have an opportunity to examine the sample of paint from an article of clothing, which was a bra, the sledgehammer, and then the walls?
Yes, I looked at each of those items independently, and I made notes about what I was seeing, both visually and also under the microscope. So I wrote detailed notes about how many layers I saw, what the paint looked like, what the condition of it was it actually paint, in my opinion? And then after making each of those notes independently on the items, then I began actual comparison of them. In other words, comparing the same colors of paint to each other, making sure that I was looking at apples to apples, if you will.
Were all 4 of the items that you received actually considered paint?
Yes, in my opinion, they were all paint.
So starting with items 1 and 2, which was the, do you have water in there?
Yes, I sound really froggy, so
It's okay. Starting with items 1 and 2, you indicated that you, in your opinion, believe those to both be paint. Did you have an opportunity then to, or can you tell us the test that you did on those 2 particular items to make that determination that it was in fact paint?
So as I said, I looked at them both with my eye on the items that they were on, as well as under a microscope. In the case of the sledgehammer, I had to actually scrape some of the material off to put it under the microscope because it was a larger area than what I could actually fit under the microscope. So I looked at it, I took a scalpel and I scraped some of the material off onto the glass slide, and then I stuck that under the microscope and looked at that and wrote detailed notes. After I determined that these were both paint samples and could be brought on further for comparison, I then used different instrumentation that we have in the laboratory to determine what type of paint might be. In other words, what is the backbone of the paint, what type of components are used in it, what type of pigments were used in it. And then I went through a series of chemical exams to determine if I saw any differences. That would be the comparison part, is to determine, do I see any differences between the items that I'm comparing? If at any time I see a difference between the items, then I stop the exams and say they could not have come from the same source, which is what we're looking to figure out, because they're different. They have some sort of chemical difference that means they couldn't have at one time come from the same source, and what have you.
So before we go further into those 2 items, did you also do that same process with items 3 and 4, which was the paint that you described that you received, I believe, from the living room wall and the kitchen entryway wall?
Yes, I was doing that same type of testing on those as well, the visual test, and looking at it under the microscope, and then determining if I could proceed comparing these items to items 1 and 2.
Is that what you were asked to do in this case?
Yes.
And at some point, were you able to eliminate items 3 and 4 from items 1 and 2?
Yes, I was. On the first chemical test I did, it's abbreviated F as in Frank, T as in Tom, I, R as in Robert. And that stands for Fourier, F-O-U-R-I-E-R, transform, infrared, spectroscopy, S-P-E-C-T-R-O-S-C-O-P-Y.
Tell us what that test does.
That test looks at how different components in the paint interact with light. So light is shining on a very thin layer of the material, in this case the paint, and the different components of the paint interact with that light so that they gain energy and then give off at certain frequencies. And those frequencies of light are specific to those materials in the paint. So for example, a pigment in the paint, like titanium dioxide, which is in a lot of things, like sunscreen, that pigment gives off frequency of energy in a very specific place in the electromagnetic spectrum. And so if you see a peak in that area in your testing, then that's usually indicative of titanium dioxide. So this technique allows me to look at both the backbone of the paint, say is it an acrylic paint or an alkyd, an oil-based paint. I can determine that with this technique, and I can also determine what pigments might be in the paint. For example, that white pigment, titanium dioxide, or other types of pigment that are usually present in different types of paint.
interrupt you at this point? We'll go ahead and take our noon recess until 1:30 this afternoon. Again, keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you, not before, not express anything about the case, not to discuss the case. Again, that means not discuss anything about the case. Any of the witnesses, testimony, exhibits, parties, or attorneys. We'll see everyone back at 1:30.